Spirit Talkers is brought to you by Southwest Trading Company. Southwest Trading Company is located in Tulsa, Oklahoma at 1306 East 11th Street. Southwest Trading Company is an indigenous-owned business. They have a lot of items like jewelry, blankets, clothing, art, home decor, collectibles, and so much more. Go follow and like their Facebook page to keep up with all events at the store and where they may be setting up. And once again, that is Southwest Trading Company, located in Tulsa, Oklahoma, 1306 East 11th Street. Let them know Spirit Talkers sent you. This podcast is brought to you by Native Co. Bead and Supply, a Native-owned and operated craft supply store, founded to give Native artists a way to craft and sustain their creative minds in helping everyone create indigenously. You can shop online at nativecobeadsupply.com or in store at 520 West 12th Street, Ada, Oklahoma, and let them know Spirit Talkers sent you. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Spirit Talkers.
Hello, guys.
We are here. We hope everyone had a good holiday season, good Christmas, and then New Year's. It's New Year's now, so I hope everyone had a great 2023. I know a lot of, I guess, tribes, because ours is like the first thunder of the spring. That's our New Year for Pawnee. For Pawnees. So, but technically that's our New Year.
Yep.
But the mainstream New Year, 2023, is over. And now we're in 2024.
Yep. You know, I had a pretty good Christmas this year. You know, I was out in the woods all by myself with that pitiful tree, and nephew over here, niece, they come and brought me a little Bigfoot character. It spent Christmas with me. We sat there and we joked and laughed and ate Little Caesar pizza on Christmas Day. You know, he was telling me all kinds of stories. So I had a good Christmas, and I just want to thank you guys for that. I hope.
Oh yeah, yeah. We what'd you name him?
I named him Littlefoot because he's a little bitty guy.
I can name him Wilson. No. Get mad at him and throw him.
God. Bounce him off the wall.
But yeah, it was a good Christmas here. I didn't get anything.
Yeah.
Just kidding. I got this brand new recorder, Zoom PodTrack 8. It was good. It was a good one. And then last night, well, this will be out in a few weeks, but December 31st, we were at the sobriety powwow in Muskogee, and that was I was there with Lone Teepee Productions, pointing at all the bad people in the crowd.
Yeah.
No.
All those cheaters.
We were live. We saw you. No, but it was the 21st annual New Year's Eve sobriety powwow sponsored by the Friends of Sobriety. And that was at the Muskogee Civic Center. And I was there with Lone TV Productions. And I guess you can call it commentary, I guess, is what we did. Because I don't really, well, I guess, yeah. I would say like co-emceeing, but it was on stream. And so we were just chilling all night, talking funny.
Yeah.
Looking at everyone, the cheaters.
Dang.
No.
Saying you know who you were. You don't send in $9.99, we're gonna blast you.
I'll pull it up right now.
Yeah, he's getting ready to post it on
I
Facebook,
got you circled on here.
Instagram, TikTok. You're gonna be nationwide like that. God.
No, but it was good. It was a good turnout. It was a lot of dancers. They had some cool, I guess, like side things. I don't know. Like they had a coin toss where everybody got one side, and if you picked heads or tails, and you picked head, and you're on that side, then you win. And so everybody would split up again. I thought that was pretty cool. And then they had the longest braid contest, and then they had the prettiest shawl, and then had something else, and I can't remember. But
Was that longest braid either your top of your head or your nose hair? No.
eyebrow.
Yeah.
No, somebody's was. I think the guy who won it for the men's division was I think 27 inches. His braid, and then the women it was 37.
Dang.
Yeah. So I was telling Arthur, I said, "Let me get down there. I got my dread." And those comments were crazy on his live. Somebody said that old dread down there. So everybody, if you have not followed Lone TV Productions, go do that. He's going to be traveling around to different powwows this year. And the first one is Denver March. He will be in Denver March live streaming. If you can't make it, be live streaming that. I might be there. I don't know yet. If y'all want me there, let me know. but we're still trying to work stuff out. So, but go follow Lone TV Productions and everywhere. I mean, YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, Facebook, LoneTP.live. I mean, he's going to stream all the powwows. So you might see me there. If you do, tell me a story.
Sounds exciting.
It better be. I'm just kidding.
Well, Denver March is usually a pretty good dance to go to. That's pretty exciting, and you have dancers from all over go over there. And they usually have quite a bit of drums show up, so it's a pretty cool powwow if you've never been.
You been there?
Yeah, I've been there a couple of times, but a long time ago. I haven't been any recently.
Is that is it the Coliseum that they powwow in? Have that powwow in? The Denver Coliseum?
I think that, if I remember correctly, one year I think they had it at some school's big auditorium for some reason. I can't remember why, but anyway, it was huge. Not everybody could fit. So.
Okay. Well, I don't know if I'll be able to fit in there.
Yeah.
No, just kidding. But let's get into, so we have other stories. Let me just clarify everything. So we have other stories regarding what we're going to talk about today. But these are like just random stories that people send, or maybe we're late to sending us stories about other topics we did. Like we have a few Christmas ones that didn't make the cut when we did Christmas, and they sent it to us like after we're done recording and doing all that stuff that evening. And so I said, we'll read them on the next one. So, and in time Christmas. I don't know if you have any random ones.
I probably do.
But let's get into it.
Listener stories. Listener stories. Listener stories. Listener stories. Listener stories.
Listener stories.
All right, so I have one from, I believe, Katie Shaw. She said, on Christmas Eve 2013, I was a single mom. I was in a really good place and feeling happy for the first time in a very long time. So we were very into holiday spirit, singing carols, wearing matching sweaters, the works. The kids and I drove to my parents to open gifts on Christmas Eve. We had a great time eating and telling stories. As you do, we said our goodbyes and headed home. I knew it would be a late night for me because I had to put together a Star Wars ship and a Ninja Turtles playset. And I am no engineer. We made it home, and as we were getting out of the car, my son, who was 4 at the time, pointed to the sky and said, "What's that?" My 6-year-old daughter froze and whispered, "It's Santa." Thinking it was just a plane, I didn't give it much attention until I noticed they were frozen in place staring at the sky. I turned to look, and there was something moving very slowly and low over the house. It had white and red flashing lights, which made me think a plane, but there was no noise, and it was moving way too slowly. I couldn't determine any shape to it. We watched for several minutes as it moved away. I let them keep the idea that it was Santa and assured them and what was that? And told him to go to bed. I don't know what word that is, but I told him to go to bed. An hour later, I had forgotten about the sky object. I was halfway through constructing the TMNT set when my elder dog started growling at the fireplace. He was 16 at the time and could probably give a crap about most things because he was so old. But he started growling and then ran towards it, barking. He stood on the ledge looking up the chimney, just barking. This went on for 30 minutes. I finished what I was doing, grabbed him, and took him to my bed. He quieted down and slept, but I stayed awake. Every sound had me tensing, but nothing else happened, and I fell asleep. To this day, my kids still talk about seeing Santa's sleigh. They're 16 and 14 now, and ask me how I did that trick. I just smile and say magic, but I don't even know what to say. Was it Santa, or was it sky people visitors like in the movie Signs, which terrified me? It's probably better that I don't know. Anyway, not necessarily paranormal, but definitely something I cannot explain. She said, "Merry Christmas to y'all."
Oh, Mido.
Golly. And then, yeah, and she has other stories too, so she's going to send them our way soon. But they're just museum stories and stuff.
Yeah.
Haunted museum stories.
The thing I like about that story, again, it's, something, you can't explain, but, the way I look at it, in this story, I've said this many times, but, spirits will show themselves to you, however they can, sometimes, and sometimes, especially with children, spirits, most of the good ones, they like children, so they want to make them happy.
Mm-hmm.
They want to, play with them, and do things. So, to me, this, whatever this was, if it was a spirit, of some sort, probably wanted to just, uplift those kids for whatever reason,
Mm-hmm.
So, to me, I think, even though it's paranormal, and that's just, my opinion, I don't know if that spirit was actually, good or, trying to do something positive. But, I'm always a big believer, you always have your good spirits and then you have your not so good spirits. So, and I think this one was probably a good spirit trying to bring some holiday joy maybe to these kids, and maybe it knew these kids really needed it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. And I know we talk about that too, about them wanting you to see them in a certain way. And so that makes a lot of sense too. But I mean, it's crazy to think about. It's Santa and his sleigh, his reindeer and all that. But I mean, like you said, it's just like making them happy, I guess, making them smile.
Yep.
So don't be afraid of Santa, everyone.
Dang, I know it.
Yeah, if you see him.
I have a story that I'd like to read off. This one's from, hold on, let me get the name right. Lavonda Dockery. She's a Kansas University student there in Lawrence, Kansas. Her story goes, when I was 14, I was getting ready for orchestra practice, but I had forgotten my instrument, so I made my way to run back to the house. As I opened the door, I saw a woman figure dressed in a white top and white pants crossing her legs while I was sitting on the couch. She had an afro and looked as if she lived in the 1970s. As I grabbed my instrument by the couch, I ran out of the house and couldn't look back as I was afraid that what I saw wasn't a figment of my imagination. When I told my mom, she said that she saw something similar. She said that when she was talking to my dad, she saw a flash of the woman in a white top and a black and white skirt with a shaved head. She moved so quick that the flow of her dress was seen. When I told my dad about what I saw in the living room, he looked at me and said, "I think I know who that is." He then told me that his mom had a friend that fit the same description. When he was a kid, this friend would come over. She gave him a book called Listen, White Men, I'm Bleeding. He showed me a physical copy that he had and said that when she had gave it to him, he wasn't old enough to read it, a book that size. Before my mom shared her experience, I thought that what I have seen wasn't real even, though I felt the woman's presence as if a real person was watching me come into the house, knowing that she is a real spirit and has me question her intentions onto why she was here.
Wow. Where was that from?
Huh?
Where was that from?
That's from Lavonda Dockery. She's from, she goes to school at Kansas University in Lawrence.
Oh, dang. Lawrence? Big hauntings over there, huh, Chris?
Yep.
Even at Kansas, you think?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How far is KU from Haskell?
I don't think it's very far. It's just, I know it's like on the, well, it's not, I don't want to say on the other side of town, but it's not like, I'd say probably maybe 12 blocks.
Oh, really?
So they're not far apart from each other, I don't think.
Dang. We'll have to go to Lawrence sometime. Just walk around at night.
Yeah.
Thank you for that story. And this one, wanted thoughts on this one. This person, Isaiah Hull. So it's a pretty long one. But it's pretty creepy. Back in 2021, me and my lady had just moved with our family to a house in southeastern Oklahoma. The land was nice and it sat just a football field in front of a creek that connects to Blue River. I was working overnights and remember seeing something, what appeared to be a tall, thin man with pale gray skin hanging off the bridge that runs over the creek. I asked my friend who was giving me rides to and from work if he noticed it too, to which he replied yes. As we got closer, however, this thing jumped off the bridge. It's about a 15-foot drop down to the creek with nothing but jagged rocks on either side. We both had no idea what it was, as I couldn't see a face or any hair or clothing for that matter. Fast forward a couple weeks later, my lady described something to me that by all means shouldn't exist. She told me that she had seen what she thought was a coyote, except it had the body of a human with the head of a coyote, completely covered in fur. And when she asked her mom if she saw it too, it simply vanished. She didn't see it run away. She just said it simply was gone. I asked her how tall it was, and she told me it was roughly maybe 5 feet tall, standing on 2 legs. After that, I refused to go out back at night. I used to love being in the backyard as it's full of snakes, and I love catching them and photographing them. But a year later, we were both heading home, coming up to that same bridge where I had my sighting, and we both saw a very massive brownish creature drop to the ground in the tall grass. I guess to avoid being seen. It was way too big to be a deer and looked more like a brown bear if it were laying down, and you only seen the top half. We didn't see the head or face or even legs, just something dropped down out of the corner of our eyes. Another thing I completely forgot to mention, I was walking home late one night, probably around 2 a.m., when I came up the creek bridge where I had my sighting. The hair on the back of my neck stood up for a split second. I could have swore I heard a voice saying, "Hey kid." I don't know if any of this is connected or not, but it sure did scare me. I don't even know if that's what I heard, but I figured I'd share that too. I thought I would be made fun of and ridiculed in this group for posting our story, but surprisingly, over 100 people commented, telling me that they or someone they know have seen the same thing. Some say it was a skinwalker, others say it was Dogman, and one thing I should also mention, and this happens even to this day, from time to time, we would both be sitting outside at night, and the sounds of nature go dead quiet. The insects, birds, even the trees and wind seem to stop making noise. It lasts up for about 5 minutes and doesn't happen every day, just every so often.
So actually, there's two entities. One that's tall and gray, and the other one looks kind of like a coyote.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Yeah, and then this is in southeastern Oklahoma.
Dang.
They might be here. No.
Yeah. So it's in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, on 51st Street. No. God.
Right there.
So right there on the corner of 71st. No. No, I think that's a pretty cool story. I know, Oklahoma's just got a lot of spooky places all over the place, and again, there can be a lot of explanations for both of these entities. Again, it could be anywhere from a shapeshifter or, like they mentioned, like dog man, type entity, or, amongst the Creeks, Seminoles, and the Cherokees, we have these one spirits. And again, I'm not going to name it, because, you start talking about this, it'll start showing up, and it looks like a dog, but it kind of has a human face, human characteristic face. And I've been told by different elders that, sometimes these things can speak to you, can talk to you, and sometimes they can stand up, like a man, do things, and again, with Creeks and Seminoles, we got all kinds of entities similar, to this as well. And I know for a fact I was coming from Perkins one day, going towards Tulsa on that old, I can't remember the name of that highway that goes, it's an old highway from Tulsa to Perkins. And I want to say Highway 51, but I might be wrong. But anyway, I broke down right before I got to Manford. Are you familiar with where I'm talking about? There's a little community there named Manford. And I had a blowout. I had to get out, and this was like super late at night, and I didn't have no flashlight. And I was getting out, trying to look around, get back then, nowadays these newer cars, they don't have car jacks and everything. Back then you had to get that car jack out of the trunk and, jack it up, take that wheel off. And, I was trying to do all that, but it was super dark and it was cloudy. And anyway, I was trying to look around, and I didn't have no flashlight or anything, and was trying to figure how to get this done. And I was working on it, and, I was pulling out the spare. And by that time, there was kind of a cool breeze. And, when you have wind like that, sometimes it moves the clouds. And, the moon would appear, behind the clouds, and then it would disappear, So for like a short amount of time, I'd have, just a little bit of light. And, I just started getting this eerie feeling. And where I broke down, there was a woods right by the road. If you ever travel down that road I'm talking about, there's a lot of woods off that road. And anyway, I just kept having a feeling like, something was staring at me, someone was looking at me, and I was all by myself, and like this was super late at night. I was just trying to get back to Tulsa, get back home, and anyway, like I said, the moonlight appeared, and I seen this shadow of a dog standing in the tree line, and that was close to my car. And I don't know, I was sitting there thinking, well, I hope this isn't, one, a wild dog, one that, might have, got rabies or something like that, or, and hopefully it's a friendly dog. You don't come over here and bite me. So I was looking for that tire iron just in case that dog, got froggy. No, but anyway, I noticed that dog started walking up to me slow, and it closer it got to me, of course, it was going super slow, so it was just like it would inch up, and then it would stop, and then it would go dark because of the clouds, because of the because of the wind. And when it would go dark, I would lose sight of this dog, and by this time that dog had my whole focus, because I didn't know what it was going to do. I was sitting there going, oh man, if I got to take this dog on, and the closer it got, the bigger it was. I noticed I could figure out the size of this dog. And this was a pretty good sized dog. It was even taller than this table. And I was sitting there thinking, man, this dog's gonna, if it's got rabies, or if it's, just a mean dog, might have a tough time with this thing. And so by this time I got off the ground, and I was standing up facing that dog. And about that time, again, the wind blew those clouds, and I had moonlight again. And there it was probably about, I'd say probably about 10 feet away from me. That was pretty close, 10 feet away. And I noticed that it looked like it had a broke shoulder. So it was moving kind of eerie, it was walking. And when that moonlight hit its face, it had a human face.
No way.
And by this time, when I seen that human face, I started to back up. I started to try to walk backwards away from this thing. Because again, I know a lot of stories about these kind of things, and I know a lot of times these stories don't end in a good way. And so I started backing up, and it stopped. It stopped walking towards me, and then it disappeared because again you had the clouds, covered the moon again, and it got pitch black. And so by that time I had that tire iron, and I was ready to, swing away, if that thing, and I was sitting there thinking, man, this thing, it's got a human face. And I began to pray, that Creator watch over me and protect me, and that this is my time. Then may He, take care of me, And so by the time I finished praying, that wind had whipped up, and again I had moonlight, and by this time, that thing was standing right in front of me, and it just looked me up and down, And I told it, I said, I'm coming home from work and I'm just trying to head home. I said, if this is your territory, I don't mean any disrespect. I'm just here. My car's broke down. I'm trying to get it fixed, and I'll be out of your territory. And so, anyway, make a long story short, I asked it to leave me alone, to go about its business so I can finish mine and I'll get out of its territory. And again, it looked me up and down, and then it turned to the right and it began to walk down that road. And while I had still that moonlight, boy, I really jumped down and I was trying to put that tire on real quick and trying to tighten everything up. I was like on one of those NASCAR sets, boy. And I lowered that jack. I didn't even put it up. I just threw it in the trunk and jumped in the car, and I took off. But when I left, I seen that thing still walking down the road. But when I turned my car lights on to head that same direction, that dog was gone.
Dang.
So.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, right when you said I felt something watching me, I hate that feeling. It made me feel like I was being watched. But I know we're all here. But it's just when you say that, it's like you feel it too. Because you know that feeling, and it's like just creepy. It's just like, I don't know. And then to see all that, man, it was, I don't know how you did it, Chris. I would have just started walking. I'm like, here, you can have the car. You want a new car? I can walk.
You just got to change that tire. That's all.
That's that's all you got to do. It's yours.
Yeah.
But that's truly terrifying. Oh man, I mean, I've heard of stories too. I mean, we even talked about it, like Dogman and everything. But just dogs that can walk on two legs and have human faces, and I think there's even a rumor around Pawnee that there used to be a dog like that would walk around on its two legs.
This, like I was saying, creeks and Seminoles, we got a lot of stories about these kind of things, and the first thing that popped in my head, we believe in these entities that basically are described like that. They're, they have that dog body, but yet they still have that human face. Mm-hmm. And they're known to, stand on their hind legs and walk like men. But these things are supposed to take off with you. Mm-hmm. They're evil spirits, and they'll take you if they want you. But normally, they're called after somebody. And if they're not after you, they can still kill you and leave you. They just won't take you. Mm-hmm. Because you're not what it's after. And so that was the first thing that popped in my head. I said, oh my gosh, I've seen, I've heard all these stories, and now, this thing truly had a human face. And that's something I will never forget, and, everybody else can say, I don't believe you. That's on you, guy. I know what I saw, and I knew where I was at. And again, if you know that area, that's kind of like in between Pawnee and Creek Nation territory. And to me, it just made sense, because, just cross the little ways down the road, you can step into creek country. And, again, creeks, we've got a lot of stories like that, of these things that roam around the woods and these back roads. So, I don't know.
Yeah. So Isaiah Hall, thank you for your story. I think we're just going to sum it up to, I don't know. I mean, that's what he said was happened in 2021. Mm-hmm. And so, and I mean, we even go back to that time of like just a lot of things happening within the world and stuff. So, mm-hmm. I mean, if there's more recent stuff that now maybe, I mean, keep sending it in, but as of right now, it could be Dogman. Chris had a good story about what it might be, and I mean, the grayish, tall, thin man, pale gray. I don't know. That might be the Rake too. I mean,
Yep.
I've heard of the Rake and I've seen videos of the Rake. And if you don't know what the Rake is, look that up. We might do an episode on the Rake. I know we talked about that too a long time ago, but that made me think of that, of the Rake. And then what else was there? Oh, the brown, looked like a brown bear. That might have been Bigfoot too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're in southeastern Oklahoma, so there's no telling, really. It's just a lot of things that could. But if there's more recent things, let us know.
One of the things I was wanting to kind of also talk about, I know recently I went and seen this movie. I think it's called The Iron Claw. It's about the Von Erichs in wrestling. I didn't know that. I thought it was a kung fu movie. And I went to go see it. Again, people tell me about movies, I don't really check it out. I just go and see them. And I thought it was a kung fu movie, and went in there, and it was about the Von Erichs and the wrestling industry, and I thought it was a pretty good movie. It really talks about the wrestling and things that were going on during the time of their reign, and the thing I liked about that movie, it talked about curses. That family believed they had a curse on them, and all through this movie you see them talking about this curse, and you seen these individuals, his brothers, pass away, and at the end, there's somewhat of a resolution at the end of the movie. And anyway, to me, I think a lot of the things we talk about on this show, was I don't know how you say, it was in that movie. And so, to me, I think the whole world is beginning to be more aware of, paranormal activity and supernatural type things. That I thought that was a pretty cool movie. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. I hope I named it right. I don't know.
I think it's the Iron Claw, because I didn't even know it was out yet, Chris. And then when you told me that it dealt with supernatural stuff, I was very surprised.
Yeah, me too. Again, I thought it was a kung fu movie, but after again watching it, that's all they talked about in that movie was the curse, curse on that family. And I remember that. I remember watching wrestling, and people would have that talk about that family being cursed. Again, not to spoil the movie for you, but his brothers, they all had how do you say it, fate. They had
Tragic fates.
Yeah, tragic fates. And so again, I remember back in the day, that was the big blow up. Was that that curse was real. It was actually affecting that family. But what I thought was kind of crazy was even thinking back to those times is how come they didn't never go try to get any help for it. I mean, I don't know. That was just my thought. After it ended the movie,
They probably didn't know like how to do that. Maybe like get help, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that's true.
They're probably just like, oh, curse. Gotta deal with it.
So just gotta.
I guess. I have to watch it because I want to see that in Godzilla -1. But yeah, the Iron Claw, I just not looked it up. That's what it's called. And Zac Efron, friend of the show. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So he'll be on next week. No. Talk about his view on that movie like that. No.
I'll have to watch it and we'll have to talk about it because I want to see it.
Yeah, you need to go see it. It's pretty cool. So I hope I didn't ruin any of it for you. But, again, if you grew up during that time, early 70s, with the Von Erichs and, all those superstars back in the day, Ric Flair when he was actually young. Dang, he's super old now, still trying to wrestle. I said, dang, that guy's crazy. But, they even, show him. They even have someone play Ric Flair in that movie, which I thought, man, they could have got someone better than that to play Ric Flair. I mean, he didn't even have the woo down right. So, anyway, I thought, dang, they need someone better that can put that woo on there like that. No.
Was his hair fluffy at least?
Yeah, his hair was, but it wasn't like Ric Flair.
The real,
it wasn't like the Nature Boy.
The Nature.
God, when he showed up, and that guy, I don't know, Ric Flair was definitely one of a kind. He was a good, I don't know what you call it, showman. And back then, I actually remember seeing these guys. Everybody in that movie, that they were naming, I seen them at different VFWs. Even here in Tulsa, I seen all those guys wrestle. Here in Tulsa at the fairgrounds, and seeing these, or remembering that, it took me back. When I was young, I had an uncle just loved wrestling. Boy, you better not ever tell him that that's fake, or you'd get an elbow right on the head. No. So, is that fake, guy? Is that fake? You'd be sitting there crying. No. So, no.
You ever see that video of I forgot who it is, but it's this interviewer, and he's going around interviewing wrestlers, and this is from a while back. I mean, this is probably around that time, and he's in the back in the locker room, and he's interviewing some wrestler, and I can't remember who it is, but he's like, I want to talk to you for a second. Is wrestling fake? And that dude, I mean, he gets so mad, and he slaps him in the face, and he slaps him again. He said, was that fake?
Yeah.
He's like, is that fake? Tell me.
Man.
And he kept slapping him over and over in that. I mean, the interviewer guy's probably like 5'5", maybe. He's a real tiny guy, and he's just getting slung around, and he's getting slapped around.
Well, that's what he gets, was calling it fake. No. Back then, I mean, you had some serious matches.
Yeah.
I remember I seen the Junkyard Dog come to Okmulgee, Oklahoma.
Nice.
And he took on, I can't remember who it was. It was that, was it the Sheik or something like that? One of those.
Iron Sheik?
The Iron Sheik. And boy, they battled it out at the VFW, man. People was going nuts. And I remember my uncle got good seats. We were right on that, right by the ring. And man, back then you would see blood, real blood. It wasn't in that fake blood, and again, we got splattered by that blood, and boy, my uncle thought that was just pretty cool. And, and afterwards, he was a big Junkyard Dog fan, and he just loved that. Again, I remember those matches, and them coming down to these little small communities and wrestling, and it was always pretty cool. That's what that movie kind of made me think of.
Mm-hmm. That would be cool. I'd love to have blood splattered on me. Front row.
Yeah.
I mean, that'd be an honor.
That's way before all these things you got to be worried about now. So,
yeah.
Dang, you get it now. You be going to the doctor, getting tested.
Back then, just lick it off you.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
So it's Kool-Aid.
Well, it's crazy, like, because I know now it's changed a lot now to where I don't even think they can really show blood anymore. But like growing up, for me, it was like they would have hardcore matches, and I mean they would beat each other with 2x4s spiraled out with barbed wire fence.
Mm-hmm.
And they would throw each other on the lights, the fluorescent lights. They would throw each other on that, and they would throw each other on tacks, and
oh yeah,
it was crazy, dude. Like I look back now, and it's like man, that was a crazy time of wrestling because, I mean, it was like anything goes because they were just trying to get TV ratings and stuff.
You know what was even crazier though is that when kids would go home, that's what they'd be doing in
Yeah,
the backyard.
that's
You
what I was
know,
doing.
I'd be
I remember, I don't know if Joby remembers this, but I pedigreed him one time in the yard across the road. And I mean, we're just like fake wrestling, and I pretended that I don't know how we knew to not really kick each other and hit each other. Like we're just, going with the motion. But when we did the moves on each other, though, that was real. And I remember like I pretended to kick him, and he went down, and I kind of just put him in the power bomb position. But I pulled his arms up, and I dropped like right on his face on the ground. And I mean, like as a kid, you don't really understand that really hurts because all of your weight is going on them, and you don't know how to. Because they release like themselves a little, so not all of that weight is on them.
Yeah.
So now looking back, it's like, man, I could have really hurt them, like, and then we would go down the road and have hardcore matches with other kids, like throw each other through tables and stuff.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
We were crazy. We would jump off like sofas on each other. I don't know, man. It was fun though. It was that time when you couldn't really get hurt.
Yeah.
Now thinking about it, I was like, man, I'd hurt myself.
But there were people that actually did get hurt. Those backyard matches. I knew a friend of mine. He got messed up. Him and his friend jumped off the roof and onto a table. And jacked his back up. And I had another friend. Do that power bomb, and he got his neck jacked up, and but again, that was the thing to do, I guess. Only a few guys got hurt, but rest of the time it was all good.
A lot of fun.
Yep. A lot of elbows to the face, a lot of knees to that back, Got a lot of guillotines put on people, It was an exciting time growing up. You didn't have a guillotine put on you. You didn't live.
Yeah. If you didn't get pedigreed on the ground, you weren't living.
Yep.
But I guess we'll get into what we want to talk about today.
Okay.
Some real haunted houses.
That's right.
So somebody asked me too, like, would you, I guess, consider like we talked about haunted houses, like attractions, I guess, during the Halloween episode.
Mm-hmm.
And so people are wondering if those stories are appropriate for this one too.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, but I never got any. But
yeah.
But I got I got a few, or I got a lot of like stories from people about just houses and stuff. I don't know if you. Oh wait. So we're going to the main topic.
That was awesome. With that being said, we're gonna go to Garrett Cooper for our first story.
Nice.
Garrett Cooper, he lives in the state of Alaska. Here it goes. Here's the story. I was 9 years old. It was January of 1991. At this point, there was only 3 of us living in the new house. My middle brother, my mom, and myself. I used a Lincoln log roof the night before to scratch my back the night before this happened. I placed it in the wood frame of the bunk bed in my bedroom. My brother and I were working on a light bright at the kids' table in the living room. The roof whistled past us. In between us, our heads spun. The roof hit the wall and fell to the floor. We both looked behind us. There was no one. I went to my room and I looked for the Lincoln log roof. It wasn't there. Then we went and opened the bathroom door and told our mom who was in the shower, or who, I guess she was in the shower bathroom when this had happened. After I told her, I searched the house. First, nobody. It was just us three there. My grandparents and the preacher came over and we all prayed. After that, we never had another haunting or unexplained happening happen there again. I grew in the projects of the village here in I guess at UNK.
Yeah. Unk.
Oh, Unk. And I thought he was talking about the UK. No, I'm just kidding.
He might be.
It said the newer houses put up in 1990 are built on old Eskimo graveyards. By projects, I mean low-income housing. The village here moved 3 times in the last 300 or 400 years due to illnesses. So scattered Eskimo graveyards are around everywhere, and so are casual hauntings. Thank you for your time. Garrett, I want to say Mado for that story. That's awesome.
And to continue that, another one from Garrett.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, winter 2019, I got up to use the bathroom late in the night. As I was going back into my room, I thought my 6-year-old woke up because I moved. He didn't cry or whimper or anything. It was silent. I placed my hands on his shoulders and was letting him know I just had to use the bathroom. As I put my hands on his shoulders, helping him find the bed in the dark, whatever it was vanished, a puff of smoke or mist. I looked over at the bed and he was sleeping soundly. I made myself go back to sleep and telling myself if the thing or spirit wanted me dead, I would have been dead already without knowing it. My sister-in-law stays at the house my wife and I were in. She sees a little girl ghost. Garrett's got some heat coming in.
Yeah.
UNK. I don't know. Is that did he make it like a property, I guess? When he
I don't know. I switched to a different story.
Oh.
I'm not a smart man.
I knew you were just ready. We're just dying to play that. Oh, no. This one is from Anonymous. They want to be anonymous. And let's see if I can get this right. We had moved into a house that had been abandoned for many years. Neighbor kids had told us the lady who lived there had died in that house, and she was mean. They also told us that their dad had died across the street from our house. Thought they were just trying to scare us. We would hear things hit the floor or sounded like the doors would slam. But all the doors would be open, nothing on the floors. Years later, my mom moved out of it, and I moved back in with my friend and her kids. We made one of the extra rooms a playroom for our kids, and we hung a curtain up over the doorway since there was never a door there. One night, my friend's brother came over and was sleeping on the couch, which was across the room from the playroom. He had his back to the playroom and he heard a ball bouncing. He thought, why are these kids up at 3 a.m. playing? He turned over to see who it was and no one was there, but a basketball rolled out from under that curtain and rolled right to the couch where he was laying. He was so scared that he ran home, which was about 10 blocks away. He said, I will never be in that house when it gets dark, and he never did. The water faucets would turn on by themselves. I've seen different colored orbs come from the hallway. Lights would turn on and off by themselves.
That's always the scariest.
Oh no! Thank you for that story. That was spooky.
Say their name. No, just kidding. Man, I'm enjoying all the stories you got. I mean, because I got a. Hold on, I just had this one. There it is. Okay, it's a pretty long one, so bear with me, everyone. I might mess up, but this person said, Northern Wisconsin, the ghost that used to frequently be in the home I used to live in. Well, she's probably still there. And her name is I guess the ghost's name is Forrest Rose. She killed herself in the garage because her boyfriend didn't want children, and she did. And I don't know if she was pregnant or not at the time, but there was a burn mark left from the exhaust pipe into the cement of that floor. I had my baby when I lived there, and I would see her every day. Every night, she'd come into the room as a mist, like a white mist. When my son cried, she'd come in and stand next to the bed while I changed him and got him fixed up, started feeding them, and then she'd walk or float out the door. The same house had at least 3 spirits. I could hear them in the walls at night when it was quiet. So there's Forrest Rose. There was an old man that smelled like cigars once a month near the same time, but you could only smell him when he was in the hallway. There definitely was another one that wasn't very nice. The shower had, I kid you not, help scratch into the side of it. The shower had help scratch into the side of it. You could only tell at a certain angle that it was there, but it was big and was at least the size of my hand. And the lettering scratched into the side of the shower, the white, red, everybody's looks. The white, red, everybody's looks the same. Oh, I guess the shower, white and red. Once late at night, I was sitting on my couch watching TV, and something right next to my head yelled, "Hey," really loud at me. It must have been 2 a.m. I always hated sleeping in that house. I just froze and sat there. I finally called a friend and made her sit on the phone with me, and she finally passed out an hour later and left me alone. A few times I had the TV shut off on me, and it was a really old setup. It just had the VCR and the TV with the antenna. It was nothing cool about it. There was no remote, so I had to get up and turn the TV back on. And then 5 minutes later, it shut off again. And yes, the TV was old, but it wasn't that old. Then the same house, the kids got library books. They were probably like 3 and 4, or 4 and 5, my 2 oldest ones. And then my youngest was an itty bitty guy. So we're going to read that book, and the kids kept saying, "Oh, I want to drink water. Oh, I got to go to the bathroom. I got to do this and that," stalling. I got mad, and I was like, "Come on then, let's go." We went back in there. I got them all settled, was going to read the book, and the book was nowhere to be found. It was gone. I set it on top of a dresser that was too tall for either one of my kids to grab. Plus, they were with me getting drinks of water and going to the bathroom and making excuses, and that book stayed gone for months until I finally found it on the bottom of that same dresser, buried under a bunch of stuff. I had to tell the library about the ghost in my house. They got a kick out of it and didn't charge us a late fee, so I guess it worked out.
Dang.
So they got that hookup from the ghost.
God. Thought you were going to say that ghost kicked him out. Well, said, get out. No.
Thank you for that. To be anonymous. So thank you for those stories. It's a lot of creepy stuff happening.
How would you say this name?
I think it's Cowett.
We got a story from Sarah E. Cowett off of Facebook. Hers are pretty short. She just said her place is haunted. She's seen things that shouldn't be there. TVs and computers coming on by themselves at any time, but mostly at 3 a.m. Dang, that's spooky. They always say when that happens, if it's always at 3 a.m., it's supposed to be a not such good spirit.
What do they call it? Don't they call that something? The 3 a.m. hour. It's not the witching hour, right?
That's yeah, you're right. It has a name, but I can't think of it. But they usually refer to that as the demonic time. That this thing will show up. Some of them will say 3 o'clock. Some will say 3:33. If it happens to you like that all the time, then it's sending you a message.
The devil's hour. That's what it's called, I think. Talitha Levere, I think. Is that right, Chris? Levere?
Yeah.
Talitha Levere, we used to live in the old superintendent's house at the Pawnee Reserve, and people would ask if we experienced anything at all, since there was a murder-suicide that occurred there. And Chris said, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, since there was a murder-suicide that occurred there. And as long as we were there, I didn't really experience anything in the house, but a few guests did. But living out on the reserve was a different story. My younger cousin saw something looking at her in the BIA building one night. She was walking through there. She had her little girl with her and turned around and headed towards the house. We lived in rather than go into the darkness that was further ahead. My mother got onto her for walking around there at night with that little one, since there are stories of little people out there. I mean, like, that's scary because I know what it's like out there. We did an investigation out there, sort of. We did like a tour, I guess, when we did a show out in Pawnee. But man, back then, yeah, when it was dark out there, like now there's lights out there, there's street lights out there, there's a lot of lighting out there. But I mean, before that, we would go out there and just hang out and ghost hunt a little bit. But it was complete darkness. It was terrifying back then. Let me read this one real quick.
Okay.
So this one, I live in a modern home, and I and my 3 kids moved in our home in 2017. I know it doesn't sound bad, but in the past, constant movement, doors closing, footsteps, and orbs in the front yard. It got annoying. I tried everything. Nothing worked. Only thing that worked is making a food plate every now and then. My daughter seen a small girl also. I learned before the Muskogee people was forced to move here, the Wichita lived here. So out of all other native people homes, it don't bother me. So out of all other non-native people homes, it don't bother me. I've been around this since 2000s. I received my BA at Haskell. Haskell is a whole big crazy spirit story too. I'll just keep that one anonymous.
Anonymous, this is.
Yeah.
Okay, I have one from Luke Penny. And she says her family was living in Flandre, South Dakota on the res. My bros and sis were playing upstairs, being loud. We were the only ones home. I'm the youngest. My bro and sister were being loud down the hall in the living room. Nobody else was home, but something from downstairs yelled, "Quiet!" I heard it. They all heard it. I was at the opposite end of the house, freaked out. Still had to take care of business and ran back to them. The end.
Dang. Thank you, Luke, for that. Another creepy story. These are all good, man.
All right. I got one from Georgia Morrell. But I'm going to ask Russell if he can read this for me.
We moved to Wisconsin in 89. I was 6. This house was tribal owned. Big 2-story house, 5 bedrooms, full basement house. To understand, you ought to know the layout. When you walked into the front door, I guess you would call it a mudroom. But there was a closet, a door to the garage. You could go downstairs or upstairs. Going down the stairs, you stared into the laundry room. If you would turn left and down the hall was 2 bedrooms. Going right down the hall was the bathroom and the basement. Going upstairs, it was a tiny hall entryway with a banister. Right in front of that was a closet door. Turn left down the hall, 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. Right over the banister was a living room with 2 big bay windows. We don't know what this was or how many of them were there or how many of them there was, but according to my dad and baby sister, there was something sinister, and some just lost the lost ones they could see or hear every day. The sinister one would come and go, but frequently. I myself have never seen or heard anything before, but it was my mindset then to block everything out. But one night I was 8 years, then I stayed with a friend. When I got dropped off, my brother was supposed to have been there, but he took off with his friends and thought he would be back before I got there. But I was alone. I went upstairs and sat on a couch, then sat right up on the hall of the banister, and I turned the TV on. I yelled downstairs for my brother. No answer. So I turned the TV on and was sitting there. Then I could hear the door handles jiggle. These door handles was like old school cheap aluminum kind. I don't know, but they made noise. So I walked around the banister and down the first 2 steps, leaned over and yelled for my brother again. No answer. So went back and sat down again. And then it was back to back the door handles again, but it was too rattling this time. I started to get scared by then. I turned the TV up to drown the noise, but it didn't help. It didn't help. It just got louder, and to where all 5 of the rooms downstairs handles was rattling. I just sat there scared, listening to see if I could hear my brother messing around. I sat there for a good 20-25 minutes, and my brother came in from the front door. I jumped up and ran around, and he was coming up the stairs. I asked him if it was him, and he said no. He came upstairs and turned the TV down and told me nothing or no one was down there. As soon as he said that, the doorknob started rattling like crazy, and the door started going, and the door started to open and slam. I got close to my brother and asked what that was. He just got up and went around the banister 2 steps down and yelled for it to quit. All the doors stopped, and he turned around. Something, I don't know what, but you could hear it come running up the stairs. Gives me chills talking about this. Right on the top step where the banister starts, my dad hung a big Ziploc bag of cedar right there. We never knew why until that evening. When my brother heard running up the stairs, he jumped the banister and we sank way down on the couch. I think at one point I was on the floor in front of the couch, but this thing ran up both stairs, would stop by the cedar somehow, open the closet door that was in front of the banister, and would run back down the stairs, rattle all the doorknobs, open and slam them. It did this for a good 15 minutes. My brother wouldn't get up, but would yell, and when he did, this thing would go even more craziness, where it would all happen at one time, making us think it was more than one. Soon after, all the doors slammed shut and it was quiet, and then my dad walked into the front door. We told him what was happening. He went through our house burning cedar, praying, told us everything was okay now. That was the first time I have ever heard anything or even thought of a ghost or anything supernatural like that. But trust me, I believe now, and when we see it, and believing now, and when we seen it. Another story, I believe that stuff is out there. I believe my dad kept us protected from all that for as long as he could, and we finally had to call my mom's family in, who was a medicine man. He said someone opened up gates with peyote meetings, and when that happens and they aren't shut right, things like that happen, and they stay until the same group goes back in there and shuts them. It never happened while we lived there. We moved out of that house in 99, so 10 years we experienced things, but like I said, my dad did what he did to keep us protected from stuff, and he could keep it at bay for a while, but always came back. The housing told us that people don't want to stay in that house. They will ask to move, but in tribal housing, you don't have a choice. I haven't been home in years, but last I knew, my nephew's cousins lived there, and they was asking what they needed to do to make it stop. I can't remember if my dad ever helped them out before we moved back here to Oklahoma or not.
Thank you for that story. That was awesome.
Man. I never thought of that. Like the meetings, opening up stuff like that.
That's why I keep saying, nowadays you got anybody running these meetings. Mm-hmm. They don't really know what they're doing. Again, there was etiquette, there was rituals, there was things that, you were supposed to listen to and abide by. But nowadays, they're turning it all general, and you're going to run into these kind of problems, because lack of knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's yeah. That goes into a lot of what we talk about with opening portals and gates and all that. And I would have never have guessed about peyote meetings, but then again, I've never been to one, so I don't know that type of way, I guess. And I would tell Chris to tell all the secrets on here, but
yeah,
no, I'm just kidding.
Be getting this thrown out. No.
I'm just kidding. Don't say anything.
Yeah. Well, since you asked, we're gonna make that moon right here. Oh. Show y'all how to properly go. No. But yeah, that was an awesome story. Again, a lot of these stories, they, just like that one, basically, kind of supports the things that we're always saying on this show. These things can be real. They can be hard to get rid of. You just have to be, you have to really be careful out there what you do.
Yeah, you really do. It's scary, man. It's scary to, I don't know. I see so many people on TikTok too. Like, I know we talked about people doing, I guess, rituals or seances and stuff, and there's more people doing them now. And they're just seeing these black figures, shadows coming around, and they record them. And I just think to myself, like, I wonder what they did to make that happen. Because people go on live and they do this stuff.
I know it. It's
crazy, dude. Like, because one time I was watching one, and this guy had candles set up all around him, and he was reciting something from some book, and then all of a sudden his live cut off, and then like a few days later he had like just random videos, I guess, from his phone. I guess his internet went out or something. I don't know what happened, but he had videos just of him walking around his house, and something was moving stuff, and he was asking it what it was and who are you.
Yeah.
And then I was just sitting there like, why are people doing this? Like, and I'm sure he never closed it, right?
Yeah. Again, this internet thing is, crazy, just like you're saying, there's some ceremonies that, you really shouldn't video, for whatever reason, shouldn't be done, but you're seeing these things on here. And the one that blew me away, I have a lot of respect for the Navajo people, the Dene people, the things that they do. They're kind of one of the last tribes that really have, those kind of ways, but even with them, you're starting to see those sand painting ceremonies, those sacred ceremonies that, you really shouldn't be videoing on YouTube now. And that really blows my mind, that, you're getting to see these things, and I don't know, some part of me, says, it is educational, people need to kind of know about these things. But sometimes there's a fine line sometimes on some of these things, especially if you're doing this to actually help someone, to ward something off, because everybody that goes to these meetings, they're, how do you say it, susceptible, or they're open to get harmed even when they go to these ceremonies if they don't come correct. That's why those old guys used to say, if you're not prepared, then you need to excuse yourself, and only you know that. And nowadays, they all pile in there, and nobody, whatever the situation is, they'll all stay in there, and sometimes people with negative forces on them only bring more power to those negative things that are in there that they're trying to vanquish. And again, it's just crazy to see everything that you're seeing now. And I don't know, that's just what I was thinking. But I've got some stories that I want to have read, but I want to make sure all our short ones are done, because these ones are going to be super long.
Yeah, I have one long one, and I know Chris does too, so the short ones are pretty much done.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and let you.
So this one's it's long because there's about 3 separate stories, but yeah, anonymous, everyone. So
who is it? No, I'm just kidding.
It is no. When we stayed with my grandma out west in the country, my husband used to hear footsteps walking up and down the hallway. There were several nights he would wake me up and ask me if I heard it. I was, of course, dead asleep when he did, but I never heard it. One night, though, during one of the holidays, a lot of us families stayed the night there. Most of us slept in the living room area. My husband and I were sleeping on one air mattress, and some cousins of ours were sleeping on another air mattress next to us with their baby girl, who was a few months old at the time. That night, he woke me up again. "Babe, do you hear that?" I laid there listening, waiting to see if I could hear something, and I didn't. I asked what it is, or what is it? He said, "I hear it again. Someone's been walking up and down the hallway, but I don't see anyone." I said, "You're probably just hearing things," and told him to go back to sleep. For some reason, this time scared me a little more than the others. Some time had passed, not sure how much time, but the baby had woke up and was crying. But of course, we all woke up until she was rocked back to sleep. I didn't think much of it. The next morning, my husband said, "Did you remember me waking you up and asking if you heard someone walking up and down the hallway?" And he said, "I couldn't go back to sleep, and when you had fallen asleep, I heard it again. But this time, whatever it was walked towards us and woke that baby up." That gave me the creeps. All the time I had been there growing up, I never heard what he heard, but other family had recalled hearing something similar. I'm just glad I never did.
Dang.
And then another time, I had a cousin who was staying at the same home place with her boyfriend and kids. Her boyfriend had started to record the kids, just taking videos of them playing games, having fun. Then he noticed weird things about the videos he took when he played them back. He had showed me these videos and wanted to know my opinion. The first videos, you noticed an orb. It looked like it would bounce around from kid to kid, and I thought, okay, that's odd. Another video, he had me turn the volume up. Very faintly in the background, you could hear a woman crying, like weeping, and you could hear her saying, "Help, help me." I thought, yo. He showed me 2 more videos. The first one video of the 2 was of his daughter playing and showing the camera her toy. Then she dropped it, and you heard a voice say, "Uh-oh." Some moments later in the same video, my mom jumped in and was being funny. Well, when she walked away, she was laughing, and that same voice that said, "Uh-oh," mocked her laugh. The second video was of his daughter again. She was dancing, then you hear the voice say, "Don't do it." It was super clear. The best way I could describe the voice sounding like it's Smeagol from Lord of the Rings. I know that sounds funny, but I swear it sounded just like that. Those videos were something wicked. I had never heard anything like that before. The next day I asked him to send me those videos, but he said my cousin made him delete them. She told him not to record anymore. She was spooked by them. One of the craziest things I'd ever heard was in those videos, but I guess it wasn't meant for anyone to hear them. I still get chills thinking about hearing that voice. And then that same house, I grew up hearing so many stories. Never did I really have anything happen to me, except for one time. My fam used to talk about a phantom car that would pull up. We had a long gravel driveway. You could always hear when a car was pulling up. One morning I was home alone. My grandma would leave me at the home while she worked. Some days she'd come home during her break, but always for lunchtime. It was around 10 a.m., and I was just waking up, and I heard what sounded like a car pulling up a driveway. I think to myself, maybe it's Grandma coming home. So I got up, I heard the car stop, and a car door slam. So I go to look out the window. I don't see anything. I thought maybe they parked on the side of the house that wasn't visible from any windows. Nothing. I waited a few seconds and thought, was I just hearing things? I could have sworn I heard a car. The house was quiet. I didn't hear anything. No one. So I turned the TV on and just sat frozen until my grandma came home for lunch. Dang. And then about 10 years ago, I had a little cousin that would stay with my grandma. He was maybe 4 or 5 years old at the time. The bathroom at the old home was always creepy. There was a window in the bathroom that looked out the backyard, and there was one security light back there. I always hated to use that bathroom at night by myself because I would get this feeling I was being watched. Well, my little cousin also hated it, and one night he came screaming out the bathroom. When asked why he was screaming and scared, he said he saw a face that looked like bones, a skeleton face, and he never wanted to go back in that bathroom alone. He was so frightened, kind of just confirmed why I had always had that feeling. Around the same time, my aunt had taken some photos of him, and in one of those photos you could see a black figure standing behind him, a manly figure, looked like he was wearing a top hat. I feel, in my opinion, whatever he had saw was in that picture too. That one creeped me out.
Man.
That skeleton face.
That'd be pretty cool, I think. I'd be posting up with him like that. All right. Thank you for those stories, man. Those were awesome, boy. I tell you what, we keep getting lots of stories. We appreciate all of them. And we're probably going to have to take turns on this one. Okay, this is from... this one's from Ivan and Kelly Singer. But this first story is actually from Ivan. I went with my good friend Ross Blackwater to Gracemere, British Columbia for a rodeo back in the summer of 1980. After cabaret, we went to a friend's house to party. After a while, we decided to go back to our host's house. It was decided I would drive our friend's car and his niece would ride with me. However, she decided to stay. I asked her for directions, but she was too inebriated to talk, so I followed her slurred instructions. I didn't really understand what she said afterwards. I found out she said the turn to her uncle's house was about 50 feet from the turnoff to the house we were at. Anyways, I turned right and proceeded down the road and couldn't see the turn, so I kept going. I soon came to an open area where there was wheat fields, and I knew I had gone too far. I decided to turn around because the car I was driving started stalling. I was able to turn and the car stalled. It was late summer and it was quite cold, and I didn't have a jacket. I looked around and I saw a white house with a red truck and a barn and corrals off to the left. I wasn't far from the turnoff, so I figured I would walk over and ask for help. When I started walking over to the house, I could hear a dog bark. I thought to myself, I hope that their dog doesn't bite. Anyways, as I looked towards the house, the lights were on and there was smoke coming out of the chimney. And the red truck was out front and a barn and corrals off to the left. As I got really close to the house, for some reason, I turned to look towards the highway. I just walked from when I turned back towards the house. What I saw next scared me. What I saw freaked me out. I could feel the hair on the back of my neck standing, and I started to shake. I really tried hard to keep my composure. Anyway, the house standing before me was burnt to the foundation, and the truck was all burnt up, and the barn and the corrals were also burned down. I was scared. I turned and started walking back to the highway where I left the car. I did not look back until I heard the dog barking again. To my shock, the house was there with all the lights on, and the red truck was parked outside, and the barn and corrals were still standing. I was totally freaked out and couldn't believe what I was seeing. I started to pray and ask God to protect me. I made it back to the car and tried starting it. The engine turned over, and I put it into gear, and it stalled again. But I was able to move it off the road halfway into the ditch. I kept looking towards the house, which was still there, and I could still hear the dog barking. I found a small banker and wrapped up in it and thought, how did I get into this? Should have just stayed with Ross. Instead of volunteering to drive our friend's car back to his house, just as I was getting comfortable, I heard a vehicle coming, and I jumped out and ran up the incline to the highway. And the vehicle I heard had gone by was a few 100 feet down the road. I started waving at them, and to my relief, they stopped and turned back towards me. When they pulled up, they were some cowboys I had made friends with. After I didn't show up at the friend's place, they started worrying about me, and they went back to the house where they had left me at earlier, and they told them I left soon after they left. So they decided to drive down the road to look for me. They said luckily I had heard them pass because of the way I had parked the vehicle I was in. They didn't see me. When I got in, one of the guys commented that my face was white, like I had seen a ghost. That's when I told them what had happened. They all looked at each other in disbelief. That's when they told me the house I went to had burnt down with the family still inside. All the three were dead in the fire, and their dog. The fire somehow spread to the truck and also to the barn and to the corrals. When we all looked over to where I had gone for help, there was nothing there except the remains of the fire. When I went into my friend's house, I repeated my story, and they were all quite surprised. Apparently, others have seen the house appear at different times. So I wasn't the first to see the house when it reappears from the twilight zone. On our way home, I showed Ross where the house was. We prayed for the family that lost their lives in the fire. The highway is the one where you turn before Fernie to the U.S. border. That makes you to Whitefish, Montana. So, thank you for that story. That's a pretty awesome story. A hoe and my dough. This second story, if you can read it.
In 2001, I was living with my ex and our 3 children in North Lethbridge in an apartment on Bannock Street. Anyways, one night we were trying to get our 2 boys to go to bed. The younger one wanted to stay up, but I told him he couldn't. Then he said he needed the bathroom afterwards. He wanted water. So I let him have some water. By that time, I was starting to get annoyed, and I told him and his brother, okay, no more excuses. It's late, and you have school in the morning. So I walked both of them downstairs where the bedrooms were located. The younger one, who kept stalling, then said, I don't want to sleep in our room because it's scary. I said, boy, what next? I told him, okay, you guys can sleep on our bed. Then the younger one said, can I have some water? And I told him, no, you just had some. Come on, get to bed. He put his head down and slowly walked into our bedroom. I then gave each of them a kiss and told them good night. Again, the younger one said he wanted water, and again I said no. He then asked if I could leave the lights on. I told him I would leave the lamp on the nightstand on. He said okay in a pouty manner. I finally got them to bed upstairs. I told my ex if she wanted to watch TV for a while, and she agreed. Anyway, she was holding our daughter, who was still awake. I sat on the couch, and she told me to move over, that she wanted to lay down. So I moved over, and she laid down holding our daughter on top of her. Just as I was getting comfortable, I heard footsteps coming up the stairs. I told my ex, geez, that kid, he wanted water again. I then called him and told him to go to bed, and the footsteps stopped. My ex said, just let him have some water, maybe he'll settle down. So I called him and said, okay, come upstairs and get some water. We both heard the little footsteps coming up the stairs, and we were both looking towards the entrance to the stairwell. Next thing we heard the tap turn on and the glass cups that were in the clean dish rack clanging against each other. My ex, with a bewildered look, said, oh my God, did you see our son go into the kitchen? And I said no. So I told her move because her head was resting on my lap. I proceeded to walk swiftly into the kitchen, which is divided by a wall from the living room. Upon making a turn around the wall that separates the kitchen from the living room, I heard footsteps going towards the stairwell. As I hurriedly ran towards the stairwell, I noticed to my astonishment that not only was the tap still on, there was also a glass of water on the kitchen counter. As I started down the stairs, I could hear the tiny footsteps running down the second part of the stairs that led to the ground floor where the bedrooms are located. As I made the turn to go down the second flight of stairs, I could hear the footsteps already running across the basement floor. As I reached the ground floor, I saw my children's door open, and then the light turned on. As I hurried past our room, I glanced into our room, and our boys were both asleep. At that moment, I got this really eerie feeling, and to make my sudden fear worse, the door to my children's room slammed shut.
Damn.
And the lights went out right after that. When I reached the door to their room, I opened the door and quickly opened the lights. By this time, the hair on the back of my neck was standing. As I entered the room, I noticed it was really cold in there, even though the heat was on. As I slowly turned and started to walk out, I felt this thickness and chills running up my back. And to enhance my already scared state, as I stepped out the room, my door suddenly slammed behind me. My God, you should have seen me jump. I think I just about jumped out of my skin, and I started to shake, and my legs felt weak. By the time I got to the stairs, my ex was standing on the landing holding our daughter. She asked me if I had seen anything, to which I shakingly responded, no, there was no one. She said, oh my God, what was it? I told her, I think it was a ghost. She then asked, where are the boys? And I told her they're in our room. She asked me, what should we do? And I told her I was going to call my adopted father. So I called my dad, and I told him what just happened. He then asked me if we had anything to make a smudge with, and I told him I didn't think so. I then remember the kids had brought home these small bags of sage and sweetgrass, which had been given to them by their native liaison worker. Liaison worker. I told my dad about them, and he said to go outside and find a willow branch, to which I responded, I don't think I can find one. Remember, we live in a city. He then instructed me to get my belt, which I did. He then told me to light the smudge and to pray and to go into all the rooms in the house while simultaneously whipping my belt in the air around the room. He then told me once I had gone through all the rooms to open the door to the outside and ask the spirit to leave. I did what he told me to do, and the weird and scary thing was when I went into the room where the spirit had ran into, the smudge turned bright red, like something was blowing on it, and the smoke looked like something was fanning it, causing it to move erratically. I then went up the stairs and opened the door and asked whoever the spirit was that was bothering us to leave. When I did the latter, my ex was standing about 2 steps up holding our daughter. This dark shadow and a strong gust of wind swooshed by me. The gust of wind that swooshed by me was so strong it blew my hair out of place. And it also moved my ex's hair out of place. After this happened, we closed the door. Me and my ex talked about what just happened. We both came to the conclusion the spirit was the friend of our children who recently had a very tragic death. During the ceremony I performed, I had called her name and asked if it was her that she needed to go to heaven, and we would pray for her safe journey.
A hoe for that story. That's awesome.
That was so the belt, was that just to help move the smoke around, I guess?
Well, sometimes, some people will say, that's kind of a way to drive them out, because, you're trying to whip them and stuff.
Oh, really? Okay.
But, sometimes that backfires sometimes. So if you're going to try it, better be confident. Because if not, sometimes these things like to fight back. And you're going to try to whoop it, it's going to try to do something equally or worse to you. So, I know a lot of people still try to do that kind of practice, but, I'd say maybe 65% of the time they're successful. You have the rest, it backfires and it gets worse. And so just be cautious what you try. Again, I know some people believe that, and so be it. Here's the third story from Kaylee Shade Singer. I sometimes get eerie feelings when renting rooms at hotels. Never know what happens when people rent the rooms. Anyway, a few weeks back, my husband, son, and sister-in-law and myself got a room for the weekend at this place where we went for stick games. One of the nights I started dreaming I was in a room seemed like a storage room, and I saw the spirit who I was yelling at, telling him to get out. He was not wanted. Here he should not be here. To leave, and apparently I woke up everyone by yelling, and my husband woke him up and told me to turn the light on. He said there was a shadow of a man standing beside me, crouched over and looking at me. I got scared and we prayed before trying to go back to sleep. Most times when renting rooms, I usually like leaving a light on for uncertainty in that eerie feeling. That's that story.
And these are all from the same person.
Yeah, it's a husband and wife.
Another one?
Yeah.
Whoa. This was an Ottawa Devil in Hull, Quebec in 1990. Me and 3 members of our chief and council traveled to Ottawa, Ontario to meet with Indian Affairs. Director General of Social Policy. Anyways, our delegation left Calgary, Alberta at 3 in the afternoon for Toronto, Ontario, from where we would change planes to Ottawa. We arrived in Toronto at 9 p.m. Eastern Time and arrived in Ottawa at 10 p.m. We caught a taxi from the airport to Hull, Quebec, which is across the river from Ottawa, and where the head office is for Indian Affairs. We checked into our rooms, and after a long flight, we were all hungry, and upon inquiring with the front desk we could get something to eat, we were informed the restaurant was closed. However, the night attendant told us there was a donair shop down the street, so we decided to go there. Being that it was February, it was really cold because it was snowing or more like blizzarding outside. When we arrived at the donair shop, the waiter showed us to our table, and being that we did not have much of a choice, we all ordered a donair sandwich. Just as we got our order, the door opened, and an elderly gentleman walked in. When he entered, we couldn't help noticing how he was dressed. He had this black thin windbreaker, which was something you'd wear during the summer. We'd also noticed he was carrying a small black gym bag, and we couldn't help noticing the way he looked. If you have ever seen the show Grease, well, this guy looked like he was a throwback from that era, the 60s. When he came in, he put his bag down and pulled his comb out and proceeded to comb his hair. And between us, we made some remarks on how he fashioned his hair just like Elvis, and we laughed. Anyways, he ordered a coffee from the waiter and proceeded to seat himself at a table right behind us. As he passed us, he greeted us by saying, "Good evening, gentlemen." The waiter brought him his coffee, and we continued to eat and conversed about how bad the weather was outside. All of a sudden, he told us, "Did you know I'm a brother to you Blood Indians?" To which one of us responded, "Oh, really?" And he said, "Yes, I am Sioux Indian from South Dakota." This was where things really got strange. How did this guy know we were Blood Indians? He then said, "I just came from the Bridge Inn, which is a hotel in Lethbridge, Alberta, and the tavern there is usually frequented by members from the neighboring reserves, which is the Blood and Pagan reserves, I think, and a handful of Crees and Caucasians. One of my counselors cautioned us not to talk to him by saying in Blackfoot to not talk to him because that he was the devil. To which the guy replied, "Yep, that's me," and let out this weird little chortle of a laugh, which sounded evil. The next things he said to us made me cringe, and I started to pray silently. He went on to name certain individuals from our tribe, especially one who was a member of our chief and council. He said, "These people are currently at my house partying, especially the member of our council. He is really having a good time with my girls." I couldn't resist, and I told him I think the man you're talking about is drinking because I know him and he has quit drinking for quite a few years. To which he replied, "That's what he likes people to think, but he's lying to all of you." Again, one of the counselors said not to talk to him, that he was an evil person. We finished our meal, and as we prepared to leave, he suddenly got up, picked up his bag, and proceeded to leave. As he walked by us, he told us in the Blackfoot language, "I will see you again." He proceeded to the counter and threw a bill on the counter and walked out. We were not too far behind him. As we approached the counter, the waiter looked at the money the guy had thrown on the counters and said, "Wow, $20. Maybe he's paying for your coffees." To which we all exclaimed immediately, "No, that's not okay." As I have indicated, we were not too far behind this guy when we were leaving. So when we went outside, as I have also mentioned, it was really cold and it had been blizzarding. We looked to see which way this guy went, and we noticed that there was no footprints in snow in either direction. At that point, we all started to get really freaked out, and we hurriedly made our way back to our hotel. Once inside, we talked about what just happened and could not come up with an answer other than it was an evil spirit that we just had encountered. As I write this story, I still get this creepy feeling, and I am certain that on that particular night, we certainly met the devil in whole Quebec.
Wow.
In respect to those individuals that this person mentioned, I did not mention their names. Unfortunately, two of my dear friends that were there that night have passed on, and the third is still with us. As a Christian and a true believer and follower of our spiritual ways, I believe there is an evil spirit out there, and its presence is evident by what is happening in our communities. So let's all pray for ourselves and our family and our people for God to keep us safe and to protect us from the forces of evil. Amen.
A hoe and my dough.
Man, that's pretty scary. I mean, that just went completely different from like where I thought it was going. Because when they said that guy walked in, I thought they were going to say they were the only people that could see him and nobody else could see him. But then he ordered his coffee and he talked to the waiter. So I thought, well, I don't know what's going to happen now. And then, I mean, just to speak in their language and know people. And
You know, I got a chance to go up to Canada when I was a young guy, and then later on in life, I got to go up there, and they have a lot of stories like that. You'll hear a lot of stories that they'll talk about. Somebody will come into a bar and he'll be well dressed, very sharp looking. Women are just attracted to him, and everybody just kind of are drawn to him, but he has a creepy vibe. They have stories like that. This individual have gloves on, and he's constantly pulling out money. But he knows everybody and their family. He'll name them. He'll not only name them in their English name, but their native name. Their Indian name. And you hear this one really brings me back to my childhood, because I remember going up there hearing these kind of devil stories, and I always loved those stories. Those always blew me away. I always have to hand it to those Canadians. They've got some definitely eerie stories. But again, when I was younger, back then, I don't know how it is today, but a lot of these places, they were few and far between. It wasn't like Oklahoma, where you have a lot of communities. These reservations were like couple hundred miles from each other, and secluded places, and same way with some of these cities. They might be big cities, but that's all that was there. You have to go way down the road to get to some of these other places. So there was a lot of distances. So for me, it made sense to, you might run into something out there in that country. And, there's a lot of, when those guys talk about mountains, they've got mountains, and, they've got different areas where you don't see anybody. And so, I don't know. I really enjoyed that story. That was pretty awesome.
I liked it too. It was a good one.
Let me see if I can read this fifth one. Again, we really appreciate these stories. These are awesome. This story is about what I call Blackfoot black magic. I am going to forget about the events leading up to what happened to me prior to Christmas 2006. All I'm going to say is, before this weird, creepy experience happened, I had a group of people who were giving a lot of trouble because they thought they should have secured the position of Indian Residential Settlement Agreement liaison officer. During this time period, this group of people were making up stories that I was being paid by a group of lawyers for my database, when in fact I reported them to the authorities. In the end, these people and the lawyer they worked for were investigated, and the lawyer disbarred. So I have to admit my integrity was left intact. Anyways, from what heard from some reliable sources, some of these individuals were cursing me, which explains what happened next. I was on the roof of my house putting up the Christmas lights, and I was just stapling the end of the last strand of lights, when all of a sudden I felt a sharp searing pain in my middle finger of my left hand. What I saw scared me, because there was no way I could have stapled my finger, because my hands were about a foot from each other. Also, there was no sharp or jagged pieces of wood where my hand was. The silver entered my finger on the inside at the first top part of your finger, where the line is, and ran all the way down to the top of my palm. I got this really eerie feeling. I started to shake and feel lightheaded. I knelt there for a few minutes and then proceeded to gather my tools. I climbed down the ladder and went inside my ex, ex's place was in the kitchen. My ex was in the kitchen, and when she saw me, she said, "What's wrong with you? You look like you saw a ghost." To which I responded shakingly, "No, I think someone shot me with some bad medicine." I showed her my finger and explained to her what just happened. I told her I am going to call my sister and brother-in-law, who were members of the Horn and Mataki Society. When I called, they weren't home, so I called my adopted father, Harrison Wolfchild Sr. When he got on the phone, I explained what had just happened and what my suspicions were. He told me to get a tweezer and to pull it out. He was still on the phone when I tried to pull the silver out. I told him it's in there pretty deep. I'm going to have to cut into the cut, which is where the silver was embedded. I finally managed to get a hold of the tip, and by that time blood started to come out. Anyways, as I started to pull on the silver, it felt like there was barbs of this on the sides of it because it really burnt when I started pulling it out. When I pulled it out, I got on the phone and told him, "I got it out." He told me, "Are you sure you got all of it?" I said, "Yes." It didn't even break. He asked me, "How does it look?" I told him, "It looks like really coarse hair." He said, "It's probably horsehair." I then asked my ex, grab me something to put it in, because it was really freaking me out because it was moving back and forth. She grabbed the envelope from the top of the fridge, and when I placed that hair in the envelope, I closed it. To my astonishment, the hair was moving inside the envelope and was making like a tapping noise. This really scared me. My ex and I then got back on the phone with my dad, and I asked him, "What do I do now?" He told me to light a smudge with sage and sweetgrass, and to make sure I place my smudge box near an open window. Once I did what he said, I asked, "What now?" He said, "Use the tweezers and pick up the hair and pray that whatever and whoever used this kind of curse will not get hurt by it or their family." He said, "Pray that doesn't affect you and your family." He then told me to place the hair on the burning sage and sweetgrass. I did what he said, and all of a sudden, this putrid, rotten smell permeated the air, and a black cloud rose up from the burning smudge and went out the window. As I looked out the window to see where the black smoke went, I could see it as it blew still all together for a short distance, and it dissipated and disappeared. Me and my ex both were looking out, and she looked at me and said, "Look," and exclaimed, "I pray and hope to God whatever that was and whoever sent it doesn't get hurt, especially if they have children." I got back on the phone and I told my dad what I smelt and saw. He told me to keep praying. What just happened was not good. He told me to get my family over to his place and we would paint our faces, and then changed his mind and said my sister Molly just got home, that he was going to come over and smudge the house and pray for us. I later told my sister, and she told me they would also pray for my safety. I heard stories of this happening to people, and as I was growing up, I heard many stories by my grandmother about my people getting shot with a curse and how they and their family suffered. That's if it was not caught at the right time. Thank God I caught it, and in spite of who did this to me, I pray that God forgive and help them and that their families remain safe. Because these things go back to whoever sent it. When the person shot is cursed by medicine men or women to rid it from their host body, and usually not very good, things happen to the user of bad medicine. Again, I really want to say Mado for these stories. These are stories that, I've kind of talked about on previous, episodes, of shooting hares. That was common amongst the tribes. This was awesome. These stories, you singers up there, I have to say, Aho and Mado, you Canadians still keep these old ways going. These are old stories. Again, you used to hear prominent down here in Indian country. Down here, we've kind of lost that kind of knowledge and those kind of stories. But I sure appreciate that you sent these and you shared these. Aho and Mado.
Love the Canadian stories, man.
Those are awesome.
We always have some good. I think the first one I heard from you was that is when we did that Bigfoot episode, and you're talking about Stickman, and it had that battle, and that was from up that way.
Yeah,
and I was just like, man, that's a movie. Like,
yeah,
visually, I mean, you could see it, and then I mean, just the way what they do and everything. Like, it's just like, I mean, it's crazy. Like, I enjoy a story from up that way.
Man, that just makes me want to go back up there, man. All of those stories they sent in were just, man, those were keen stories. Mm-hmm. Aho.
Thank you. Yeah, we have a lot of listeners up there too. So I'm always happy to have their stories. And if you're from there, up there that way, send them in. We love to read them off and talk about them. And I mean, just reminisce too, because Chris, we've talked about that stuff like throughout this show. Like, dang, over almost 2 years now, coming up on 2 years of this show. There's a lot of things that are talked about on this show. So when you're telling that story, I was just remembering, shooting hares and, I mean, getting rid of stuff. And, I mean, it's just stuff I hear. So, and it made me think back of that Stickman story. So.
Dang, those are cool stories, man. It just brought me back to my childhood. I'm like, man, I want to hear some more now.
I like that devil one.
Yeah.
That one, I think that one's probably my favorite one from those, like, that group of stories, like, just because I thought it was going one way and it just totally went another way. It was like you're meeting the devil, you're meeting this evil spirit, and it just knows. Mm-hmm. And in the way it said, like, I know you're a councilman and he's partying with me and these girls or something, and no, he's lying to you. Like, it's just like, oh man.
Those were cool. I have to just say, man, that's just awesome. Every one of those stories, Ivan and Kylie Singer, again, I appreciate that. Again, may the Creator bless you guys for sharing that information with us down here. We're pitiful people down here, in Oklahoma. So again, appreciate that. Oh,
amazing stories, everybody. I mean, this was just a load of stories from different people on this episode, and we appreciate all the stories that reached out to us. Once again, I mean, if you have any stories like regarding this episode or just anything in general, send them our way and we'll read them.
Yep.
We'll discuss them. If you have questions, ask us in that message or something too. I mean,
I just want to say we have the best listeners out there. Again, I appreciate each and every one of you. Everybody that sent in stories, throughout this year, you made this fun. This 2023 was an awesome year. And this first recording, we're coming out of the gate, fist flying. So again, appreciate that. You guys supporting us. I hope we can continue counting on you guys for that support. We're looking for bigger and better things in 2024. Motto.
Yep. Coming out swinging. Throwing high knees, doing all that.
Elbows.
And we're still looking for Christmas presents.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
I know it. I'm just pitiful over here. No. Yeah, I got my sweatshirt on, got my hat, got my shoes, got everything. So, but oh, guys,
Yep. Thank you everybody for listening, tuning in, and it's going to be a great year, man. 2023 was fun, like Chris said, so we're going to keep it going. And I guess let everybody know where to follow you, Chris.
you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube under Christopher Honka Hill. But oh.
Find me at RussellMass49 on Instagram. Follow me on Facebook or add me, Russell Sun Eagle, at Okie Podcast on Instagram. Follow us on Instagram at Spirit Talkers Podcast. On TikTok at Spirit_Talkers. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spirit Talkers Podcast. Hit that bell so you get notified when we have stuff on there. And we are on Facebook as well, Spirit Talkers Podcast. Go follow the page. Keep up with the page. And I don't know, you had something to say?
Please share this. We want to try to double our followers this year. But oh.
Yeah. So share this, everybody. Let everybody know who we are, what we do. And we appreciate that very much. And shout out to Southwest Trading Company. Shout out to Native Co. Bead and Supply. Go check them out. Southwest Trading Company is in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Native Co. Bead and Supply is in Ada, Oklahoma. So go check them out. Let them know we sent you. Follow them on Facebook as well or Instagram, and keep up with where they may be at in conferences, powwows. I mean, they set up everywhere, and they have their own shops as well. So go check them out. And I think that's it. Did I forget anything?
Nope.
And I guess, yeah, thank you for all the stories, everybody. We appreciate them. Keep them coming, and smudge up.